Welcome back to Daybreak. This is now the social square part of the show. This happens every Friday from 7 a.m. and that's why we've changed our setup, everything with a completely different look and feel, even as we have this particular conversation. Now, usually we're discussing very upbeat, very happy topics when we get into social square, but today, because of the state of the nation in regards to the gruesome murder of Ivy Wangeshi, we switch gears. We want to get into a more somber discussion at this time. And to put this all into context, of course, you will know the latest update so far is that the body of Ivy Wangeshi, the medical student who was killed in Eldoret, has been transferred to the Kenyatta University mortuary in Nairobi. Now, she was hacked to death in broad daylight by Naftali Kinuthia.
Friends and classmates gathered at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital's mortuary to bid farewell to a young lady they had interacted with them for the past 7 years. Ivy, who was set to graduate in December with a medical degree, is said to have maintained high grades throughout her course of study. Investigations into the murder are still ongoing.
We continue to send our condolences to the family and friends, of course, of Ivy Wangeshi at this time. Very, very sad state of affairs. Let me reintroduce my guests once again. Together with Zinzi, we have, of course, Suleiman Munywa, creative and presenter. We carry on this conversation. Daisy Olo, PR and comms feeder, and of course, Rafton, a.k.a. Roy Smith Mwatia. Thank you for just staying with us as we get into this. And I want to get your reactions on this. We'll limit our discussion in terms of Ivy Wangeshi because that matter, I believe, is now headed to court. And we don't get into that, back and forth about it. But what factors, and I want to start with you, Daisy, do you believe are leading to some of the worrying numbers that we've heard about? 35 women so far lost their lives in 2019. We're talking 3 months, 3.5 months or so. What factors do you think are contributing to this?
First of all, let me begin by saying I have been at FIDA for some days now, and every single day I look at the newspaper to determine what affects the Kenyan woman. I have come across not less than 2 stories of women hacked to death, killed, or whatever the case, but women who have lost their lives at the hands of a lover, a friend, a partner, or whatever the case. So I dare say that 35 is a conservative number to begin
You
there.
believe that there are
35 is a conservative number. I would even put it at 50 because there are cases that are not reported, granted, because maybe the family doesn't have the power or the connections to have it out on paper or newspaper or social media or whatever the case. And then there are other cases that just slide through the system. And then, of course, there are the cases that get reported. There are more than 35 cases that we have seen so far. But I think, right off the top of my head, I think that patriarchy has a lot to do with it, and this notion that once you have a partner, you have a wife or a girlfriend, they belong to you, and so it becomes sort of like you view them as your property, something to have, something you own, and therefore that kind of entitlement around that ideal then propels many males to do very unspeakable things.
And speaking of entitlement, Daisy, that's a good point. Let's take a look at maybe the upbringing of a boy versus a girl in the African home state. And Higgs gave a very good example where if they're visitors, the boy child sits with the family and the guests, and the girl is told, ingia kitchen. Does the upbringing of a boy and a girl in the African home state later on bring about power play? When they're grown up in their relationships and the girl can now make her own decisions. Rafton, I'll begin with you.
Thank you. First, my condolences to Wangeshi's family. And to me, people don't talk about this, but it's actually driven also largely by the economic empowerment of the boy child. You've just talked about the culture. Boy child, even for me, I was raised, you're taught, when you grow up, you're supposed to be a provider. That's the reason why when you grow up, they say you have to fend for your family and all that. But in the Kenyan economy right now, boys don't have that economical, stability. So at the end of the day, I've met young people who say, I'm really stressed because I'm in a relationship, but I can't. When my girlfriend tells me I need money for salon, I need money for bus fare, even airtime, Bamba Credo, they don't have. And they are genuinely in love with this lady. So what happens? The lady now ends up subscribing to a couple of different men. One is for Credo, the other one is for bundles, the other one is for salon. And without knowing it unconsciously, it leads to jealousy and, you know, all these things. So for me, I would say the culture has to be blamed, but also economic empowerment over. The economy is not working. And again, it's linked to the political landscape that we have in this country. Money is not trickling down to the normal teenager. So for me, I say it's a big spider web that has to be dealt with.
So let me hear from you, just the upbringing that a boy and a girl within the African homestead, how different they are and how they later, that impacts how they correlate.
I think what happened is we lost communication at some point between the parents and the children.
Right.
And let me just generalize it, not just keep it to the boy child or the girl child, where certain opportunities were available to our parents, but they came quite late in their careers. So they jumped onto them, and they've been busy, Monday to Friday. Look at many parents right now. You're busy Monday to Friday, and then Saturday is the day you're running your errands. So Sunday is the only day you might have a chance to hang out with your kids. But then again, you might have gone out on Saturday night, so Sunday you're nursing your hangovers and you have to go to church and you have to do all these things and squeeze them into that one day. So there's not enough time for you to be able to communicate with your kids. So the relationship between the kids and the parents is there, yes, but people actually say that we have orphans in houses where we have parents. Because what's happening is the boy is being brought up to be a provider, but the dad is not there to tell him and help him, to talk to him and tell him how to deal with issues when you're facing certain things in life. So you go through adolescence, yes, you might learn about one or three things in school, and then comes the sex education, so some of these things. Now we have the internet, so people do not really have the time to even bother with their parents, because if he doesn't have time for me, then I'll just deal with it the way I think I should deal with it. So I've got all these feelings and mixed expressions that have been harbored inside. So when I come to a time, let's say something happens and I do not know how to deal with it, I deal with it in the best way that I see best suited. And that's why you see a lot of these youth in general, let me say, or men, or even ladies, taking issues in their hands and dealing with it it's an issue of rage. You don't know how to control your temper, because no one ever taught you how to control your temper. You don't know how to talk about your things. There's no one to talk to. So I can't go and sit down and talk to Daisy. I can't talk to Rafton. I can't talk to Wahiga, you know. So there's no one for me to really sit down and just tell, this is what I'm going through, this is what I want to do, or how do you think I should deal with this? So because there's no big brother figure in their lives, people decide to deal it in the way that they think. I mean, for this particular incident, for somebody to leave Thika to go to Eldoret, I mean, clearly, somewhere in between there, if he had somebody to talk to, if he had somebody who even drove him there, who talked to him and just talked him out of it, this would not have been the issue.
Wouldn't be having this particular discussion. Daisy, I want to read a quote from theconversation.com. I got this on one of the articles on that particular website. Most young men are socialized to be sexually adventurous and aggressive. It is how you prove your masculinity. Girls, on the other hand, are expected to be chaste, domesticated, and compliant. Women and girls who deviate from these designated roles risk disapproval from community members, as well as physical and sexual violence. How do you respond to that? And I want a response from the men as well.
I take it back to something that we've been seeing at FIDA concerning, let me take it slightly away, something like FGM. The other day, a 14-year-old girl passed on from FGM complications in Meru. And so we go down to the area and we are sensitizing the people against FGM. And we're talking to some of the men along the way. And they say, mimi siezi oa msichana hajakeketwa, hajakatwa. Right? So in as much as we are educating the girl, in as much as we are educating and having this conversation at the female level, what are the men being taught? What are they being sensitized about? Because a girl will say, no, I don't want to be circumcised. And then the conversation goes on to, I can't get married because these men want us to be circumcised. But this is the thing. We have to be serious. And somebody yesterday was saying that men need to have a conference. Leave this one for Valentine's Day.
Not the one they had last night.
No, not that one. And I think it was here, right on a panel here on Citizen
oh, yeah,
with your editors. Yeah, and so they say that men need to have a serious conversation. What are your values? Okay, I'm looking at you two guys and just, trying to see, even as I'm saying this, how you're reacting. What are your values? What are you passing on to your brothers? What are you passing on to your sons? Because the truth of the matter is, if you do not pass on these values to your children, and especially your male children, somebody else will, hack your daughter, your sister, your cousin to death. And for me, hacking to death, somebody drove all the way from Thika to Eldoret. What kind of rage was that it couldn't, be diluted at some point, eh? What kind of hacking somebody to death? Am I a chicken? You know, even chickens kind of they have, you know, psychological preparation. You know, it's very inhumane, and it just goes to speak about, you know, our social structure. We have been desensitized about humanity. We have been desensitized about the very core of humanity. And the good book, the Bible, talks about the shaking of foundations. And when the foundations are shaken, the foundations of a nation are shaken, the foundations of a people are shaken, what can the righteous do?
The foundation in this case is the basic family unit.
The basic family unit, our national values.
Okay.
Where are they?
Okay, hold it there, because we want to let our viewers know 22423 is the SMS line. I've already gotten an SMS, but we can get some more before we put them up for you on the screen. The hashtag is Daybreak, and you can call in as well on this topic. And there's something that Daisy has raised. Do we have some tweets now? Not yet, but they're coming in. Okay. And to the two gentlemen, she posed a direct question to you. Are men ready to admit that there might be a problem, that there is a problem?
Yeah, she just quoted Psalms 23. If the foundations are destroyed, what can a righteous man do? Let me talk to the boy child, or let me just bring their cases out there. The challenge with men, as we put it before, they've been taught to be hunters, to be providers. And again, I've put it here before, that the problem that they're having, money is not easily accessible. So maybe if I'm to help the girls, I'm not defending anyone. When a boy has money, that shows his capability of providing or being the hunter. Whether he's married or not, they get security in their financial status or property. So many a times, men are never serious. I'm telling you the truth. Many a times,
serious revelation on the show this morning.
Yeah, they're never serious. They're just playing around with the girls and all that. But now when a man now opens up, and now they say, maybe they say it in their hearts, or maybe they share it even with the girl, that now I'm serious with you, and then wherever you say they you know, comply, to them it's a very serious contract. Because they don't get to that level. It's just like these circles. Before you get to this circle, or before you get to a man's inner circle, you must go through some other circles.
Does a woman know that there's a contract?
That's the problem now. Some women don't know that this guy has let gate A open, gate B, now you're on gate C. But now the woman thinks, we're just playing. So I think there's a communication breakdown between these two sexes, which needs to be broken down. And I think, as he put it, men don't know how to express themselves. A guy could be now on circle C, and the lady thinks we're just toying around. And then when the guy now invests, he thinks, now me I can propose, or this is my lifetime girlfriend. And then when he realizes, but this is not what is happening, that's when they go on a self-destruct mode.
Where, and I know you want to come in, between the point where they realize this is not happening and the self-destruction phase, there is nowhere in between where they can turn back and
that's why I say it depends who's your, should I say, your mentor, or somebody you can actually open up to. Because if you don't have somebody who can counsel you, what comes into his mind is, I failed. I'm not a hunter anymore, I'm not a provider, I'm a disgrace to the things I was taught or what the society expects of me. How do you go back to your boys' clique and say, I've lost this girl, and just 2 weeks ago you're bragging that you have her?
I think men are not able to show their vulnerability.
Yes.
So, as he says, once you've knocked down those couple of first walls and you've gotten to the core of a man's heart, he doesn't know what else to do. And unfortunately, as I said earlier, when we're talking off mic, a lot of people have taken relationships to be like businesses, where I invest a certain amount and expect to reap something. And unfortunately, both ladies and gentlemen at this point in time will settle for less, because he's doing this, he's paying my bills, he's paying my school fees, or he's paying my rent, he's taking care of me, you know, in this type of way. He's allowed to do whatever it is that he wants. Remember, a relationship is, you're there by choice. You can walk out. There's nothing much the person can do. You don't have to go through a relationship that is full of violence. Just because he raised his voice at you or he raised his hand at you, you can walk out. You don't have to be there. Don't settle for less. Because I think that's what's happening. We don't know our self-worth. So when this guy tells me he's going to walk out on me because I do not do 1 or 2, 3 things, or I'm not like so and so, then you know what? Just, if it's not for you, if it's not working out for you, just walk. All
right, we have a caller. Dan, you're calling in from Nairobi. We want to bring you and be part of this conversation. Good morning, Dan. What's your comment on the conversation we're having?
Good morning, Cynthia. What I'm going to say is, actually, what happened to Ivy is not something that should happen to anybody's daughter in this time and age.
Right.
But when you look at this issue critically, there is total decay, moral decay in society. And I think as a society, I don't think we've been able to do anything to be able to uplift the upcoming of our children so that they're able to know what they're supposed to do, especially when they are under pressure. And therefore, to me, I think as parents, because I am also a parent, we completely failed our responsibilities. We are out there looking for money, but not looking at the responsibilities of trying to bring up our children, to get them to know how they're supposed to grow in society so that they become responsible people.
Right.
The other institution that is supposed to come in is the church. But since you ask yourself, when I walk out of my house, on the left is the church, on the right is a church, in front of me is a church. But what do these churches teach our young people? It's all about money. They never talk about this moral fabric of, in society, so that when our young people are growing up, they get to know that how are they supposed to grow up. There is a word that is being used in society right now. This word called slave queen. And since slave queen is not a bad word. This word was supposed to use to empower young girls who have the power to go out there and do something that is able to help society.
Right.
But look at the way that word is coiled and how it's being used now. It's a word that is being used to show girls who are out to chase men and all that. And therefore, to me, I think there is much more that needs to be done in society, from parents, from the church, and even government, because there's a lot of pressure. Many young people do not have jobs. And when you meet some of these guys out there, once you have a boyfriend, the next thing you need from this boyfriend, probably, you need something out of them. You need to make your hair, you need to make your makucha, you need to make your legs. And these young guys cannot be able to get this money. And whenever you go out there...
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. I think you've put your point across very loud and clear. Thank you for weighing in on this discussion that we're having on Social Square today. He's talked about parents. He's talked about the role that they should play. Do you think it's time that parents start talking to young men about how they should relate with women? Has that conversation happened? And I don't know if any of you are willing to divulge how you were brought up, but is that a conversation parents now need to start having with men, with women as well?
Yeah, but unfortunately, most parents are young parents. So they find it, they're still living life. And they have young children, or maybe preteens. So maybe...
Okay, I hear where you're coming from, but there's this sick joke that is normally made, especially towards fathers when they have girls. And they're like, hey, your child, your baby girl is so pretty. Uyu, unafaa kununua, get a gun, put it aside. It's a sick joke, but it's a way of showing why are you protecting, what is it that you're protecting your baby girl from? A fellow woman? What will a fellow woman do? You know that joke that has always been put, you need to get a gun, your daughter, the way she looks gorgeous, people will be coming after her. It's a sick joke, but does it not speak volume about how we relate, how the male and the female species relate, even from such a young age?
I think, as you say, as we grew up, just to answer a bit of your question and a bit of hers, a lot of our parents, we hid our girlfriends from our parents because at some point you do not want your parents asking questions about who is she and asking you where did she disappear to, because sometimes some of them are flings, some of them is just infatuation. You're brought together by circumstances. So I mean, you're in high school, you're still trying out these things in life, you really don't know, and then you notice, oops, this is not the person I want to be with. And I mean, we all have these ideas of what we would like, and I think we went through, as you'll say, an experimental stage where you met a lot of people and everything, and we didn't really share these things with our parents. But I think it's also the task of the parents to find out what their kids are up to. Who is your girlfriend? Let them feel like they're welcome. Come, bring them over. Bring them for lunch. Let me cook you guys a meal. Let me find out who my daughter or my son is going out with. Because you never know. I mean, that person could actually help your child grow, or could be the end of him or her. So I think it's about time parents started this conversation. If you're not having this conversation now, talk about anything under the moon. The first thing you should do should be you're not just a parent, but your child's first best friend. They always say that a father is a daughter's first love. Take advantage of that relationship. Talk to your girls. Let them know that there are not so nice guys out there, that there are nice guys out there. Teach them, empower them to the point where they're alone. They can make decisions of their own, and they can see a phony character miles away.
Exactly.
And the ladies, I think once you learn how to take care of yourself and as an individual, it also doesn't matter much about the other person, because you know what you want in life and you can settle for nothing but nothing less than that.
You know,
all right.
Wahiga, sorry, if I could just chime in on the conversation. You've said something that has broken my heart. Is it time for parents to start this conversation? Let me weigh in also on what Saleh is saying. Wahiga, things don't go wrong, things start wrong. When we say parents start having these conversations with your parents, what have you been doing
The whole time.
all this time?
Yeah.
What have you been doing? You know, so let you say something. I usually tell my male friends that it's important for you when you have a daughter. It's very important for you to give her the very best that you can, so that when some big shot politician shows up and says, "Hey, you know, I can buy you a car," she already knows that, look, daddy has, you know, he's done these things for me, so it doesn't move me, it doesn't shock me, you know. Have that kind of relationship where, yes, you're a best friend to your child, but you're also the point of authority where you say, this is the way, walk in it, and that child will walk in it. So things start wrong. They never go wrong.
I've mentioned, it's very interesting that you've mentioned what parents can tell their daughters. Some people feel that that's the problem, that it's not about telling the daughters, it's about telling the sons. How do you respond to that?
Well, what is the role of parenting? What is the role of a parent if not to mold and shape these young people into your own image here on earth, right? So these conversations need to be had at both. We need to have these conversations at both levels. You know, from days of old, we know of apprentice programs that have women sitting down with younger women, teaching them weaving and basketry, men sitting down with young men and teaching them tannery and pottery and all these things. So there was that kind of communication. And even, you know, in the days, the biblical times, it's clearly said to us how young women and older women should relate, how younger men and older men should relate. So, you know, it cuts across. There's no one thing to say that it's only women who should be having these conversations. It cuts across, because when you have two wholesome people coming together, then that forms a strong foundation for society.
Rafton, you've really painted for us the link, the economic link with relationships. Allow me to take it even further. I read a specific post yesterday online, and it sadly had a bit of truth in it, and a bit of it was ish-ish, but generally it was talking about how nothing is for free. As much as perhaps you buy a girl drinks and or you pay for her wig or whatever, her manicure and pedicure, it's not for free. Do you want to take that conversation a bit further for me?
Again, I would say it's because of the society and parents failing to bringing their, should I say, their young ones in the godly manner. That's why when somebody is taken out and you know, it's in the morning, a guy will say, I've spent amount X on you, so you need to return the favor and all that. So my take is, honestly speaking, parents need to open up, and they need to trust. Like for instance, I've been talking to a lot of my friends. They said their parents, what they did, they isolated them from the society. The fear of them getting exposed to the mafisi out there and taken advantage of. So you find it gets to a stage where this lady has to go to campus, and there's very little you can do. You have to surrender them to the hostels or to the university. And then they're naive, and then they fall into these temptations. So for me, I would say, as she put it, you need first to let your kids to become your best friends, spoil them, let them trust you, and have a godly foundation. The Bible says, don't stir up love before don't awaken it before it's time. And again, as I've said, the problem with the young generation is they assume they know everything. And every time there's somebody who's trying to stop them, they look at you like you're the enemy. They don't realize you've walked through that pit before, you're trying to save them. So many young people think they're in love, but as he put it, it's just a stage in life. Maybe circumstances have brought you guys together. And for me, I would say it's a very bad notion. Even, unfortunately, the movies, the media push this narrative that nothing is for free. If you're a born-again guy, if you're a born-again lady, you know this can be my sister, that can be my brother. I can buy him soda, I can actually pay her taxi, just like friends, and nothing in return. Again, it goes back, as I've told you, the narrative that the society is pushing to the boys. You have to be a provider, and you don't have to lose your bet.
Right, all right. Yeah. Let's take a look at a few of the feedback that are coming through, and the conversation still continues. You've been tweeting us at Citizen TV Kenya, hashtag is Daybreak. Let's take a look at some of the tweets before we take a commercial break. This specific tweet says, women should rise and stand up for themselves. That way men will take less advantage of them. Being independent is key. No one controls whatever desires you have. Okay.
All right, we have another one. Azay Koptel, why are we normalizing femicide? It's so shocking how Kenyans, including women, are making jokes using weapons, objects that are used to commit crime. We've lost respect for humanity and respect for the dead. We are cursed, I guess. Okay.
All right, this one says, to curb and suicide and other unfortunate deaths amongst us, the youth, Kenyans must play their part, the parental role that is, fully. You must caution your girl child rather, against this new dangerous trend of slay queens.
Okay. Odia George, nothing hurts me like having youthful leaders in parliament whom we voted with a lot of hope but later turned out to be worshippers of political godfathers. We are worse than the old incumbents. Okay. Tying in also with the conversation we've had before, looking at what happened in Sudan yesterday, but we now have some SMSs.
Right. 22422 is the SMS line. Morning. All right, let be the truth that our morals are fading away. We have failed as a society, and as parents should play their role. And as parents and preachers, as a man of God, should install spiritual understanding. So I feel it is a collective responsibility.
Okay, I think we get the gist of that one. Mutiso Muli from California, teach love, how to stay and endure in love. Sex is a marital affair, lifelong mutual commitment. Life is sourced from sex. It's time the society upheld the sanctity of sexual relationships. Okay.
All right. This one says, I think this is a case of failure of our religious institutions and indifferences of society to issues affecting youth. Stress management lessons to be introduced from secondary schools. All right. And that says also what Solo was saying. If a friend drove with this guy and perhaps talked him out of it, Ivy would still be here with us.
Okay. Wow, this is a long one. You don't give us your name, but you say relationship is an investment. People struggle so much to ensure whatever they invest in succeeds. As a provider who struggles to meet his needs and painfully spares something for his investment, Kenyan girls must be rebuked for taking... Okay, I'm not sure about this SMS. Women in Kenya today have all these advantages. Affirmative action, job preference, etc. Young men are disadvantaged, yet they are still the providers. This must change. Let's not blame men all the time. Teach girls too. I mean, valid point. Let's not blame men all the time. Teach girls too. But in the case where the man is a murderer, unfortunately, you know, it is what it is. And I think this is a very hot topic at this time. And something that we'll be exploring when we come back. I mean, and I see a lot of the SMSs are saying women, you know, rise up, women be decent, women be this, be that. But one thing that has emerged, especially on social media, are women saying how they are being stalked. So I'm trying to ask myself, it doesn't matter how well-dressed you are, if a man decides that they're just going to follow you, what does that have to do with how you're dressed, with where you work and that sort of thing? So I think there's a lot of issues that we might be mixing in this whole discussion.
And right, and even to even take it further, what it is being a woman in Nairobi in this day and age, you have to go through sexual harassment in public transport, the catcalling that you face, you have to say hi for your own security, you know. As in, this has suddenly become the reality of women in Nairobi, you know, from workplaces to public transport systems to being catcalled on the streets. You're not even safe in your own home. We've seen stories where a husband, you know, decides to kill, you know, his wife. So what's the state of being a woman in Nairobi?
That's a discussion we'll be having when we come back. And of course, keep talking to us. We are waiting for those calls as well. Keep calling in, texting, tweeting. Daybreak, Social Square, continue shortly.